Hi guys and welcome back. Now today we're going to talk about a very hot topic, and that is how to get a provincial nomination for immigrating to Canada without first receiving a job offer.
This is a very popular topic at the minute for a number of reasons. Firstly, because a provincial nomination provides you with an extra 600 CRS points, effectively guaranteeing an invitation to apply in the next draw.
But probably more importantly right now is that due to the ongoing repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been no federal skilled worker or federal skilled trade draws at all in 2021, not since 2020, so almost a year now. The draws have been focused on Canadian Experience Class and the Provincial Nomination Programme, or PNP.
Because there are no federal skilled worker draws taking place at the minute, there are more and more applicants being added to the express entry pool all the time, pushing this cut-off score higher and higher. So there's never been a better time to be pursuing that provincial nomination.
Right now, no one has any idea when the federal skilled worker draws will resume, so if you are desperate to get started on permanent residency in Canada and don't meet the requirements for the Canadian Experience Class, getting hold of a provincial nomination is looking like a great option. So, the big question is, how do you go about getting hold of one of these precious nominations?
Now, each province has their own provincial nomination programme and a different way of choosing candidates, and has very different criteria based on such things as your CRS score, your skills and experience, whether you have existing ties to Canada.
Some provinces, such as British Columbia, even have their own scoring system as part of the programme, so as you can see, it really does vary considerably depending on which part of Canada you will be applying to move to.
So each province has different areas where there are job shortages and will therefore focus their programmes on targeting different skills and different occupations. So it's certainly worth considering which part of Canada you're interested in living in before you get started.
Most Canadian provinces require you to have a job offer before they will consider offering you a provincial nomination, but the great news is that 6 provinces do not require a job offer.
And these provinces are Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Prince Edward Island and Quebec. Nova Scotia used to offer a PNP route that didn't need a job offer, but this was permanently closed in January 21.
The PNP system differs from the express entry system in that with a provincial nomination you are required to live in that province for a certain period of time once you arrive in Canada. So if you receive a nomination from Ontario, for example, you're only allowed to settle in Ontario. You can't just arrive in Canada and then go and live in New Brunswick.
PNP programs allow you to immigrate with your whole family, and some of them have fewer requirements than the express entry system. So because provinces are really keen to attract workers to fill their job shortages, the language requirements and the necessary CRS score are often much lower, allowing successful candidates a much faster route into Canada.
Now, it's probably useful to mention here that we get a lot of people asking what the easiest Canadian province is to move to. And the honest answer is that there are no easy provinces to move to in Canada. It very much depends on your personal circumstances, your experience and your requirements.
You might choose a province based on where you would like to live, or you might make a choice based on which ones fit your skill set the best. Everyone is different. So it's important to understand all the options that are available to you before you make your decision.
In essence, provinces want to attract new workers to fill their job shortages, and the reason some provinces do not require a job offer is so that they can bring young, skilled workers who are going to contribute to their workforce and to provide them with a faster route into Canada.
So the reasoning is that once these workers are in Canada, they will fill the positions and begin boosting the economy rather than waiting years and years for skilled workers to navigate themselves through the express entry system and come to Canada that way.
Today we're just going to give you an overview of the provinces with PNP programs leading to permanent residency which do not require a job offer, and we'll briefly explain the key requirements for each one.
Each province has different requirements and has a different method of applying for their program. There is no one-stop platform where you can just send out a blanket application for all nominee programs. You first need to choose your province carefully, and if you want to apply to more than one, then you have to apply to each province individually. Each province can choose to nominate candidates, but it is ultimately the federal government who makes the final decision to approve applications for permanent residency in Canada.
In the coming weeks, we'll be releasing videos detailing each individual province's nominee program in much more detail, so make sure you hit subscribe to our channel to get all the information you need on provincial nominee programs.
If you are undecided about where you would like to live in Canada, you need to begin with looking at which occupations are in demand, what are the basic requirements, and where to start the application program for each province.
We'll start with a very popular province, Alberta. The PNP program for Alberta is called the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program, or AINP. All of the information on Alberta's most in-demand jobs can be found on the Government of Alberta website, which we'll link to in the description below. But at the time of making this video, there are currently 68 listed occupations in demand, including carpenters, hairstylists, I don't need them, social workers, university professors, and software engineers and designers. So as you can see, it's quite a diverse array.
Alberta has several nominee programs which come under two categories, one for workers and one for entrepreneurs, and the requirements for each one vary. Now, unless you have a job offer or you are planning on starting a business, the only program which does not require a job offer is the Alberta Express Entry Stream, which, as the title suggests, requires candidates to already have created an Express Entry profile.
But this differs from applying through Express Entry the standard way because although you start off in the pool with all the other Express Entry candidates, once you receive your nomination from Alberta, you'll effectively move out of the pool and into the AINP, and the processing time for your application for permanent residence will be much, much quicker.
And unlike some other nomination programs, you can't apply directly to the AINP. You must create your Express Entry profile first and wait to receive a notification of interest letter. Then successful candidates are invited to apply. Once your application is submitted, you're entered into another pool of eligible AINP applicants for consideration.
So because you must apply to the program through Express Entry, it means the standard requirements for Express Entry are also applicable, which are getting at least 67 points out of a possible 100 in their core requirements, a minimum of a high school education, being able to provide proof of funds, showing that you have enough money to support you and possibly your family members once you arrive in Canada, at least 1 year of skilled work experience, and achieving a minimum of CLB Level 7 in a language test. This can be in either English or French, and for more on the language requirements for Canada, click the link above to watch our video on language tests explained.
Now finally, the only Alberta-specific requirements that you must achieve are a minimum CRS score of 300, at least 1 year of work experience in an occupation which supports Alberta's economic development and diversification, and you must have the intention to live and work in Alberta. All the information on the AINP can be found on their website, which we have added the link to in the description box below.
Next up, we'll talk about the nominee program for Ontario, another very popular Canadian province in the east of the country. The program is called the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, or OINP, and it's similar to the Alberta program in that all applicants must first be eligible for one of the federal Express Entry programs. If you're not eligible for one of these, you will not be eligible for the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program.
So those who receive a nomination for the OINP are people who have the skills and the experience that the Ontario economy needs. Right now, the in-demand occupations in Ontario include the agriculture, construction and trucking sectors, web designers and developers, software engineers, nurses and financial auditors and accountants.
Similar to the Alberta program, Ontario has several streams for applicants with a job offer and for entrepreneurs, but also an Express Entry route for workers who have the relevant experience, education and language skills.
The options for applying under this stream are as a federal skilled worker or through the Canadian Experience class, and the requirements are quite high for both. But the great part is that no job offer is required.
As a rough overview, you must score first at least 67 out of 100 points on the 6 selection factors in the Express Entry programs. You must have at least a bachelor degree and 1 year of skilled work experience, provide proof of funds, achieve a minimum of CLB Level 7 in French or English, and have the intention to settle in Ontario.
Once you have an active Express Entry profile, you can be found by the OINP, who search the Express Entry pool to find candidates who meet the criteria for their program. If they identify you as a candidate, they will send you a notification of interest through your account, inviting you to submit an online application to the OINP.
The link for the OINP is in the description box below. Make sure you hit subscribe and stay tuned over the coming weeks for more detailed information on the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program and to see our detailed video on how to apply for it.
So the next province we're going to talk about is Manitoba. Now, the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program is called the MPNP, and they are looking for skilled workers and business people who intend to settle permanently in Manitoba and who have a strong connection to the province.
They have routes to permanent residency for business investors, international students who've graduated from a university in Manitoba, and a third stream for skilled workers from overseas.
So there are 3 steps to immigrating as a skilled worker in Manitoba. The first one being to submit an expression of interest to the MPNP. The MPNP has its own points allocation system, and when you submit your expression of interest, you are awarded points based on your age, your education, your language proficiency, your work experience, and your connections to Manitoba.
You need at least 1 year of post-secondary education in order to gain points and at least 1 year of work experience. It's also worth mentioning here that although you get huge extra points for connections to Manitoba, such as a relative, a job offer, or previous work or study experience in the province, you actually lose points if you have work or study connections to another Canadian province. So you can see how keen Manitoba is to attract candidates with strong links to the province who intend to stay there.
So in the other categories, the maximum points allocated for age are for those aged between 21 and 45. So great news if you're applying a bit later on in life. And for language proficiency, you are awarded points for a score as low as CLB level 4.
In step 2, the highest scoring qualified candidates in the pool are invited to submit an application to the MPNP. And finally, in step 3, the MPNP nominates successful candidates to make a separate application to the Government of Canada for permanent resident visas.
The great thing about Manitoba's PNP is that not only do you not need a job offer, but there are very few minimum requirements. You can submit an expression of interest with very few qualifications and a very low language level. It's simply a case of the more skills and qualifications you have, the more points you'll be awarded, and therefore, the more chance you have of being selected.
Make sure you hit subscribe, again, to see more in-depth information about each province's nomination programme, as in the coming weeks, we'll be releasing a PNP video for each province with all the information on requirements and how to apply.
Next, we have the province of Saskatchewan and the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Programme, or SINP, which is another points-based selection system. Applicants can apply for permanent residence as an international skilled worker through the Saskatchewan Experience, which is for foreign nationals who already live and work in Saskatchewan, or as an entrepreneur or a farm worker.
In the international skilled worker stream, which is the most relevant for most candidates, there are 3 subcategories. Occupation in demand, for those who have experience in an in-demand field in Saskatchewan, employment offer, for those who have a job offer, and express entry, for those who have already created a federal express entry profile.
As we discussed earlier, the programs which are linked to express entry require much higher levels of education and language skills. So for applicants who do not qualify for express entry, or who maybe have a low CRS score, the occupation in demand program is the most feasible.
Points are allocated based on your age, education, work experience and language ability. And you also gain extra points for connections to Saskatchewan. In order to be eligible, you need at least 60 points, and although you don't need a job offer to apply for the International Skilled Worker Stream, it will provide you with extra points.
The highest points are awarded for being aged between 22 and 34, and you need a minimum of a degree or post-secondary certificate, but you only need a minimum of CLB 4 in your language test and at least 1 year of work experience to gain points. So this is an ideal program to apply to if your CRS score is quite low.
To apply, you need at least 60 points out of a possible 100 in the SINP points assessment. Once you've established you're eligible, you create a profile on the SINP website, submit an expression of interest, and you're entered into the pool of candidates.
The highest ranked candidates will be invited to apply to the SINP, and once this process is complete and you pass all the necessary application checks, you will be offered a nomination certificate from Saskatchewan, which you can then use to apply for permanent residence.
Next is the relatively small and possibly little known province of Prince Edward Island, also known as PEI. It's an island on the very east of Canada and is also part of the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Programme, or AIPP. Take a look at our video on the AIPP for more detailed information about that.
PEI is Canada's smallest province, both in landmass and population, and the PNP aims to attract skilled workers to fill its job shortages. The most popular and accessible category for the PNP is the express entry category, as you need neither a job offer nor prior experience working or studying in Prince Edward Island.
As this programme is linked to the Federal Express Entry System, to be eligible for the PEI-PNP, you must meet the requirements of at least one of the federal economic programmes, Federal Skilled Worker, Federal Skilled Trade, or Canadian Experience Class, and have an active Express Entry profile. Priority is given to applicants who are already living or working in Prince Edward Island or who have a job offer, but this is not a requirement.
So as we mentioned earlier, the standard requirements for Express Entry are also applicable for this programme, which are getting at least 67 points out of a possible 100 in the core requirements, a minimum of a high school education, being able to provide proof of funds showing that you have enough money to support you and your family members once you arrive in Canada, at least 1 year of skilled work experience, and achieving a minimum of CLB level 7 in a language test.
This can either be in English or French, and for more information on the language requirements of Canada, click the link above to watch our video on language tests explained.
So, the steps are to first assess your eligibility for Express Entry, and next you must create an account and submit your profile to the PEI Expression of Interest system.
The highest scoring qualified candidates will be invited to submit an application to the PEI-PNP, and after review, Prince Edward Island nominates successful candidates to apply for permanent residency, which will provide those wonderful extra 600 CRS points.
Finally, we're going to talk about the province of Quebec. Now, most people will know Quebec as the French part of Canada, and they're right. The vast majority of Quebec's residents speak French as a first language. Quebec's regular skilled worker programme is not a provincial nominee programme as such. It's a more straightforward immigration programme and is arguably the easiest way to immigrate to Quebec.
The best part is that firstly, the only education requirements are having completed high school or having vocational training, and unlike all other immigration programmes and Express Entry, you do not need to pay to have these credentials assessed.
Secondly, you do not need a job offer, and thirdly, you only need a minimum of 6 months work experience to be eligible. But of course, because it is a points-based system, although you don't need these things, they will provide you with more points.
Your skills and experience are assessed using the Quebec selection grid. Factors which are considered are language proficiency, and for obvious reasons here, French is preferred over English, your work experience, your age, the characteristics of your spouse, and ties to Quebec, and the presence of children.
You will gain more points if you have a good level of French and if you have previously spent some time in Quebec. Your spouse can also provide you with points, as will a job offer within Quebec. And unlike any of the other provinces' immigration programs, bringing children with you to Canada will give you extra points.
Because Quebec does not come under the same federal laws as the rest of Canada, it's a not very well known fact, you have to apply online for the program through their Arrima portal, which we'll link in the description box below, by creating a profile and submitting an expression of interest. If your total score is high enough, you'll be offered a Quebec Selection Certificate, or CSQ, and can use this to apply for permanent residence.
And the best part about this is that creating an account on Arrima and submitting all of your details is completely free. You don't need an immigration lawyer or a consultant. You really can just do this by yourself. As I said, we'll link all of this in the description box below, so take a look.
Wow, that was a lot of information. We hope this has given you some pointers on what the PNP process is, how it works, and which provinces you can apply to. We'll be releasing lots of videos in the coming weeks on each of the individual provinces' provincial nominee programs, easy for me to say, so stay tuned and click subscribe to learn more about each province, what they offer, and how to apply.
Please let us know if you have any questions in the comments box below, and do let us know if you're thinking of moving to Canada. Which province will you choose and why? See you next time.